I've been with VSO for 5 years now, and on this development agenda since the middle of 2012, since the Rio conference when this really kicked off. I've been working on this for 2 or 3 years now.
How long have you worked for
No, I was part of the steering committee for the development agenda since negotiations that were happening in February. Rio was the first time I've been involved in DOF for really an opportunity to channel the views of NGOs, charities into the intergovernmental. No, I was part of the steering committee for the government negotiations that were happening in February, and that was the first time I've been involved. I'm part of working with really an volunteering organisation, channel the coalition of NGOs, organisations, charities in the world to working through volunteers in development work. I became the chair of that last October, and then I'm part of Space for Volunteer Groups, working group of volunteering organisations, which is a coalition of 20 chosen by the World Commission working through volunteers in development work. And I became the chair of that last October. Yeah. And then there's a space for volunteer groups within these negotiations, so I put my name forward. There was 20 organisations chosen by the previous month's stations starting in February. Canada, United Nations volunteers, of the volunteer groups, yeah, organisations, international parts in other countries. And it's a coalition that's working on this post 2015. No, it's 20 organisations, yeah, so a lot of volunteering organisations from Canada, United Nations volunteers, Australia, New Zealand organisations, of our counterparts in other countries. And it's a coalition that's working on this post 2015 process, trying to get volunteering recognised as a force of the agenda.
What's the real interest?
I think, yeah, it is realistic. We've had a long lead-in time for deciding on this process, and there's a lot of very detailed discussion happening on the sort of nitty-gritty of the agenda happening over the next few months to be announced in September. I think it's certainly ambitious. Yeah, it is realistic. I think we've had a long lead-in time for deciding on this process. There's a lot of very detailed ambitious things to be setting about deciding an agenda for the next few months. Development for the meeting to be announced in 15 years. I think it's certainly ambitious. It should be ambitious in taking on 17 goals and 69 targets. And it's an ambitious thing to be setting about deciding an agenda for it looks like that's development for the world under the post 2015 years. But I guess if I had the message as a volunteering organisation, volunteers of all sorts, people working in their own communities in the global south, Irish people going overseas to work in places in Africa. Yeah, it looks like that's going to be really important under the post 2015 millennium. I guess if I had the message as a volunteering organisation, it's really important for us that volunteers of all sorts, people working in their own communities in the global south, Irish people going overseas to work in places in Africa and Asia, have been really important in implementing the Millennium Development Goals, which are finishing at the end of this year. Yeah, it's really important for us that volunteers be recognised. September is a really important date. When heads of state, heads of government are going to go to New York to hammer out the final agreement on this and announce it. And then come January the 1st, it will be joint force and it'll last at the state. We will. And I think come September is...
Yes, my name is Ivan Cooper and I work with an organisation called The Wheel. And The Wheel is a support and representative organisation. It's an association of voluntary community organisations and charities in Ireland. So we've 1,000 members now, and there's about 8,500 not-for-profit organisations in Ireland currently.
Yeah, I interviewed you at the RDS in 2013, April 2013. It was one of the early phases of this whole process for new development goals.
Yes.
How do you think, like in the last year and a half or 2 years since, you think things were going in the right direction? It's going to be a good
Yes,
thing?
I think there's an enormous amount of progress that's been made. It's a very ambitious undertaking that the United Nations are taking on here to put in place what they're calling sustainable development goals to take us out to 2030 with ambitions to eliminate poverty, for example, across the entire world by that date. So it amounts to nothing less than a grand strategy for sustainable development for all of the people of the planet. It's a hugely ambitious undertaking and it's very exciting.
And do you think, like, are we going to, I presume we're going to hear a lot more about it by the end of the year, because the goals are supposed to come in January. It's a bit incredible. The whole process is hard to believe, I think. It's so major. It's the biggest global project probably ever, isn't it, really?
Yes, it's hugely ambitious. So there's 17 goals running across all kinds of different headers, as I've indicated, about poverty elimination, about making sure people have productive work that they're able to do, making sure that people have access to affordable energy and water, making sure that climate change issues are addressed and that we live in a sustainable way into the 21st century. So it is hugely ambitious, therefore it's inevitably complicated, but ultimately the ultimate objectives, the outcomes are straightforward. It's about making sure that we live in a sustainable way that's fair and just to everyone on the planet, and that there's good futures for ourselves, our children, our grandchildren, and for the future of humankind. So it's hugely ambitious, a bit complicated, but ultimately there are some staging posts along the way coming up, various United Nations conferences over the coming months, with a view to having these goals in place in 2016.
Okay, if I don't talk to you by the end of the year, I'll talk to you early next year when you come into force.
Thank you very much, Darren.
My name is Hanan. I work for the European Anti-Poverty Network. We're a network of small community organisations across Ireland and national organisations working for the end of poverty in Ireland. We're part of the European Union-wide European Anti-Poverty Network, which aims to put the eradication of poverty at the top of the agenda at national and European level.
And you are speaking today at this conference we're having today, organised by Dóchas and Coyle. What's the message you have for our viewers about this whole process of getting the new sustainable development goals? Like, do you think it's a good idea and it's feasible and it's going to work?
I think it's important at a couple of levels. The goals themselves are important because they talk about the issues that matter to us, about inequality, about poverty, about homelessness, but of course they're interpreted in very different ways in countries with more resources. The process is really important because we have a lot to learn from each other. People in Ireland have learned a lot from the way community development has been developed in areas like Latin America and areas like the Philippines. People in Latin America, for example, have learned about trade unionism, cooperatives from Europe.
My name is Zomer. I'm the director of Dóchas, and Dóchas is the umbrella group of development NGOs in Ireland. And we've organised this meeting about sustainable development goals because this is really an important new framework for the world. It's going to set political priorities for the global community about how we're going to build a better world. So, and it's based on a universality principle, which means that it applies to every country on Earth. So it's going to be relevant for development and the members of Dóchas, but more importantly, it's also going to be relevant for Ireland. It's going to shape, this new framework is going to shape how we do politics and policies here in Ireland, how we shape our society. It's going to have impact on our agriculture, on our policy for education, on the way we plan our towns, on the way we do our education, on everything, and also therefore on the work of Irish civil society, or Irish community and voluntary groups. They need to know that we are going to have a new global framework that's going to inform not just government policy but also the practice of NGOs and therefore also the lives of poor and marginalised people in Ireland.
And the process has been going on. Like, I know civil society has been engaging with it, like, I don't know, 2 years ago, but the process of new goals has started like 5 years ago, hasn't it? But we're still in the early phase in the sense that most people don't know about it in the world, don't they?
Yeah, that's an important thing to note, that this is a transformative, a really revolutionary new global framework, and most of us aren't aware of this. And actually the important thing is also to stress is that Ireland is actually chairing the negotiations for this new global agreement. So there's many reasons why people in Ireland should be aware of this. They don't have to get involved in the intricacies of the negotiations, but they have to know that come September we're going to have a new global agreement on what matters most if we want to build a better future for ourselves. And so therefore we are hoping that your listeners, your viewers and everybody in Ireland will take heed of and understand the importance of these new sustainable development goals.
Okay, Hans, I've talked to you a good few times over the last 2 years. I'm talking to you again about it soon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Mar couple mí hain seo bliain an tá táhairte seo bliain tá ceannairí an dóna teart le chéile le spriocanna úra a choranú chun an dóna dhéaniste an éithníosár agus na spriocanna seach tá siad im líana mar teascad an MGGs na spriocanna na mhílíse tá deireadh teart lá agus caithícinne a spriocanna úra eile a chorann an éit. Agus rid cinne tá táhairta de a próses dul ré na tá ceannairí i caint faoi an bochtanas i tenéireann, i tá sa rank, i tá sa dhearman, tá siad cainte na cinne na hábhar céarna tá ag tarlú sna tíri sin agus tarla sa tíri ta House in Afric. Agus yn ysbrwcyn e sio, dy si gael fe gírir ga tír fod yn dôn.
It's really all war I show that well, like Tashi big on it don't to credit can I show credit and so like on May and sort May shake Tarlo, Tashi Tarlo like well.
Tá sé tarla agus gap mí Hanan in nuagra tá Canary an dóin agus dúní ó éirin freisin. Tá si na hí is seamra agus tá si de gurc jicinál, arcan na sprúcna seo casa leis. Agus i go bumute seo tá seaartí ag sprúcna curt le héile. Agus arcan si do wahanrad ó bachtanas, ó idehas, ó híb sláinte, ó brití costala was it o tú céimiid poisttí tá gála na scála a freisin cicinneal ide sa teistigh foiil cisteannaí mar sin sinna cinneal cisteannaí tá siad cotar a chéile háin sin.
Just more up a score Fiona. Can I chat-dropped a bhíon not just a raw dar story faoin bóise seo agus an ní mísa tá macrón.
Yeah, well, boilm just in siad an héisteí gur proses ionta bíanta táhata a teong agus go chur an núil go gaithí sé cisneáthir ó ar na teachtaí dá le cisneáthir ar